and welcome to an episode of Final Fantasy. Oh, hold on. Of Final Fantasy VI Brave New World mod, version 2.2 RC2. So, my understanding is that this is basically the final beta testing for the 2.2 version of the Brave New World mod. The only thing that's left basically is bug testing. If there are any additions or changes, they'll probably be negligible. So I figured for all intents and purposes, this is basically the final version, or as final as we're gonna get until the official release comes out, and I don't want to wait anymore, so... This video will be useful for a variety of different audiences. For people who have never played Brave New World and want to see what it has to offer in the most recent version. For people who have played Brave New World but they haven't played it in a while, like maybe since 2.1 or maybe even 2.0, or have played some of the 2.2 betas, of which the development cycle has been pretty heavy, pretty extensive. The last times that I had played this mod, it was basically exclusively challenge runs. I had sort of like a problem with challenge runs. Doing them and then making the challenge so hard I couldn't finish the run. But I'm going to try to finish this one because I think it's important. So typically the first indication that Brave New World is working is this altered version of the text box, which is blue. Like a different, a lighter blue where the gradient kind of starts out light at the top and then gets darker as it goes down. And it's just different. What I like about this new version is that it now has the Final Fantasy VI logo. Magitech logo and title. I hope that the final version of 2.2, when it comes out, will have the words Brave New World pop up at the time that the 1994 Square shows up, and also to have the skull that exists for the Brave New World theming, which Brave New World is named after Iron Maiden. I don't remember if it's an album or a song. So one feature that this mod introduces is the ability to skip the intro cutscene by pressing A. I don't believe the original version of the game did this. It's really cool to see the names introduced here, because I've had conversations with every single person name that is showing up on the screen at one point or another. Except for Axis, I don't know who that is. Yeah, I think this is really well done and very professional. This is also something that wasn't in the original versions of the mod and has only been introduced since 2.2. I think it's better because people who have played the mod have already seen the original credits a million times over. Oh, well, we messed up here. So one thing that I like is that's new is I try to walk backwards. No, bad player. Which is exclusive to Brave New World. Oh, they moved her at the bottom. I didn't notice this. I guess that is new to this version. And then put everybody in the back row. So we'll take this time to go over the new things in the menu. I'm going to try to not go over every single new thing added to Brave New World, because that would just take far too long. But we'll see. I might do that, or I might just prioritize things that are new to this version. There are also people who have played 2.2 and probably already know all these things, so they probably just want to see gameplay. I'll try to strike a balance in there. Some things you just can't get rid of. So as you can see here, there's an image across that shows what kind of damage it does. If you hold Y, as you can see there's a blinking Y button, you have access to the power of this spell and who it can target. Esper menu, as you can see, Sword Tech has been renamed to Bushido. In the equipment menu, equipment and relics have been consolidated, so you no longer have to go to a sub-menu. In previous versions, you could normally switch this by pressing Y, but this is no longer necessary, and I think that this is very useful. One thing I think would be cool is if you could also consolidate Espers into this menu, but for now, it's just not a thing. I can't really show you anything with Espers right now because I just can't. We don't have any. New to the mod is the review function, which allows you to take a look at your entire party's equipment setup. It also includes relics and espers. As you can see, Wedge has the Dirty Undies relic, which, if I remember correctly, by itself, it removes random encounters. And my headcanon is that it does so because it smells. So I kind of want to mod it and change the tagline to Smells Like Teen Spirit, because there are a lot of 90s references, 90s and 2000s references from mostly video games, but sometimes I think music as well. So I feel like it fits in line with what you would expect for the humor of this mod. I think it's a missed opportunity. In the status menu, we now have the ability to not only just see all their stats, but you can also see what statuses they are able to block, what statuses they automatically have. So with block, you've got Blind, Poison, Mute, Metal, Berserk, Sleep, Petrified, Death, Stop, Slow, Sap. What statuses they inherently have equipped to them based on the equipment, like Safe, Haste, Regen, Shell, Berserk, Reflect, and any bonus applications they have, like Attack Plus, HP Plus, Counter, Magic Plus, MP Plus, Cover. You'll notice that Attack Plus and Magic Plus have 1 plus, whereas HP Plus and MP Plus have 3 pluses. This is because there are 3 separate tiers for bonuses, those tiers being 12.5%, 25%, and 50% respectively. Having one tier highlighted and active means that the previous tiers are automatically considered. So when you have 3 pluses, when you have MP plus 50%, all 3 are covered. That includes 12.5 and 25%. When you have 2, the first 2 are covered, and you have 1 covered. The reason is because these abilities do not stack. So you cannot stack 2 25% HP bonuses in order to get 50%. It doesn't work that way. If you have 2 of the same bonus types equipped, then the highest percentage type takes priority. So if you have a HP plus 25% effect and an HP plus 50% effect, the HP plus 50% effect takes precedence. This is important to know because in this mod, especially even more so than the original game, there are a lot of pieces of equipment that can increase the statistics. So not only do you have your typical equipment that can increase the statistics, of which I believe there are more of, you also have relics that increase the statistics that not only did before, but you have new relics that also increase the statistics where they didn't used to. And you also have certain espers that can do so as well. I'll cover those in a moment. It also shows you if you have cover and counter. This is important because abilities do not stack for any of these on the screen. Therefore, if you have a weapon that has auto counter, you might want to reconsider placing the black belt relic on your character. But there's still benefits to doing so. The benefits to doing so are that relics now have inherent stat bonuses attributed to them. Literally all of them except for like 1 or 2 relics have this effect. And even the one that doesn't, Hyper Wrist, off the top of my head, which gives you auto berserk, at least gives you the bonus to damage output through the berserk status effect. So what this means is that basically all relics serve a purpose. In the original game, many relics were weak or borderline useless, and they fell off very quickly. It's been a long time since I played vanilla, so forgive me for any incorrect or misinformation. In this game, even the early relics are useful. Even relics like Goggles, which only block blind, which get outclassed by relics that cover more conditions and status effects, are still useful because they are able to give you give you stat bonuses that you may decide, hey, I only have the Goggles left, I'll equip it anyway, even though I can't really use the effect, just for the stat bonuses. And in some cases, relics that are outright superior in ability are actually weaker in terms of stats. For example, you have the Death Ward, which gives you both safe and shell, but the stat bonuses that it gives you are actually weaker than the stat bonuses you would get from applying the wall ring or the guard ring, which apply those statuses individually, which means that there is some tactical reason to use one of the 3 over the other, rather than Death Ward just being objectively better. Furthermore, relics often have stat bonuses that either accent the stat desired, but more often they accent the stats that other stats that are not directly related to it. So, for example, I forget the name of the relic, but the one that gives you safe when you have low HP, that actually doesn't boost your physical defense through stats. It boosts your magic defense. So you're getting sort of a bit of physical and magic protection. So you benefit either way, and there's as a result, there's tactical reasons to use one over the other. Another good example is the sprint shoes, which now, because you have auto sprint dash through holding B, you can equip the sprint shoes and they don't increase your speed, they now give you auto haste. What they do is they increase your evasion, which works now, by the way. Likewise, the black belt doesn't increase your vigor. It gives you auto counter, but it increases your speed. There's so many things to talk about that I almost don't know where to start, so it's difficult to not get sidetracked. If you press Y, you can see which elements you're able to absorb, which ones you're able to know, which ones you're able to resist and get half damage, and which ones you are weak to. And you can use this in combination with your equipment to sort of plan around how you're going to protect your character. In the configuration menu, you can see that the mod works by seeing the title as well as the version. I have Brave New World 2.2 RC2. You can turn EXP gain on or off. I'm going to leave it on for this one. Turning it off keeps your character at level 3. You can still gain gil. When your experience gain is off, your gil per battle doubles. It'll still say you've received experience, but your character won't gain it. You can gain spell points, which I'll cover later, but you can't gain Esper points, which allow for Esper levels, which I'll also cover later. Message battle speed, we're going to turn that all the way up. This doesn't really matter. This is really just for like in-game text. They don't appear very often. Battle speed is now fixed. It is consistent. I think the speed is fair, not too fast, not too slow. You cannot change it. Command set, same as always, window short, I keep window. Weight gauge, you can now see the delay of your ATB when you select the command. Attacks have a delay that creates a bar that goes down, so, and then that's how long you have to wait before your attack goes off from when you select it. Leaving it on means you can see it, turning it off means it's not visible. You can also see your HP, your max HP by holding select. Attacks have certain delays in this version. I believe they were the same in the original. I just don't know if they were tweaked. Also, the formula for ATB and for slow and haste have been altered. Now the bar stops whenever animations are at play, so you always get to maximize your speed advantage, which speed does matter now. Item and jump has no delay, item has a short delay, fight and certain abilities have a normal delay, some skills have a longer delay depending on the ability, etc. Same as always. Reset memory. We're going to keep that on memory. B button dash. So by default you can dash by holding down B, which means the sprint shoes are obsolete, or you can set it to walk so that whenever you walk you are automatically dashing, and whenever you hold the B button you are walking if you want more precise movement. So if you don't want to hold down B, you can do that. I normally hold down B for dash, but I'm going to try and see if I prefer walk. This is the same as always. You can single or multiplayer. This only works, the magic order works for how spells are organized. I'm going to do black, white, and in effect, and gray. I've never done this version before. And then, of course, if you want your default window, you can do that. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn the colors red. This is usually how I like to do it. I like to make it red themed like the logo. I tend to take my Final Fantasy games and change the color scheme and theme to match the logo. So in Final Fantasy IV I keep it blue. In Final Fantasy V I usually change it purple. I think that covers everything. So now we can begin the game proper. We're going to do this optional fight. Oh, sorry, I skipped that. You can also now hold down the A button in order to fast forward text, basically. As long as you're holding down A, once the text box completes, it'll automatically move over to the next text box. This is useful for speedrunners. But also people who have seen the story a million times and they don't want to go through a bunch of dialogue, they can do that. So you'll notice that Terra does not have access. Characters do not have access to their additional commands. It's just Tech Laser and Heal Force. The purpose for doing this is to make room in the spell index for other spells and other abilities, which I think was useful. Because these, you don't really use them anyway. This section is really a breeze even without them, so it's a worthy sacrifice. We see that XP experience is now shortened to XP in order to match the theming for GP, SP, and EP. I might change that back because I kind of like white being at the top so that I can utilize it. We'll do that. The beginning section of the game, I'd say like the first 30 minutes or so, is basically identical with some small changes. The translation has been modified. There are some concessions, alterations made that make it a little bit more similar to the better translations out there, like the GBA version. But there are also a lot of changes that make the dialogue a little better. Certain characters have more interesting personalities or nuanced dialogue that makes their personalities stand out a bit more compared to other versions. You'll also notice that characters are no longer all caps by default. Tech Laser doesn't have, Magitech doesn't have any delays, so you won't be able to see the bar. That is why the bar instantly hits 0. You'll notice that Terra's Tech Laser does roughly double the damage of Biggs and Wedge. All three can one-shot a guard, but only Terra can one-shot the wolves. This doesn't really affect anything significant. You may or may not notice, probably not because I'm killing them so quickly, enemy AI has been vastly altered, as well as scripts. So for example, the Lobos, if their global timer goes on for long enough, in other words, if they're left alive for long enough, they will use an ability called Fang, which shows up here, which they will use on top of an additional regular attack. This move hurts, and they will continue to use this every turn until they are dead. Which means that if you are not paying attention to what you are doing, you can very much get killed at this stage of the game. So even this early section, which is still just as easy as the original, there's still a threat present if you are playing carelessly or not paying attention. It's almost a way to say that, hey, this isn't vanilla. One of the most common complaints that this mod gets, especially in the earlier versions, is that it's too difficult, which is not true. This really occurs because people play the game like vanilla. They become too hard-headed and stubborn about how to play the game, and as a result, they lose and they act surprised when it happens. Here's Heal Force, by the way. And this game sort of trains you to unlearn those habits because they are not good. If you try to play this game like vanilla, you will lose. The first time I ever played this mod, which was like 1.7 or 1.8, I actually couldn't beat Admiral Weapon and I had to cheat. I tried many times to beat him. 2.0 was known for making the game, 1.9 and 2.0 were known for making the game a little easier, and 2.1 balances things out. There's a lot of things that are balanced in your favor in this mod. It's not a difficulty mod. It's more difficult than vanilla, but it's primarily a rebalance mod. The game only becomes significantly harder than vanilla if you play it like vanilla. If you play it like the game, how the mod developers want you to, the game actually becomes easier than vanilla, I would say, unless you exploit it. Vanilla is easy a lot of ways because you can teach everybody Ultima. There's a lot of glitches and bugs you can exploit. Like, yeah, if you know how to do that, then vanilla is easier than Brave New World, but I would argue that vanilla is harder than Brave New World if you play Brave New World like you know how to play it, and you play vanilla like you don't know how to play it, if that makes any sense. As you can see, there are no random encounters here. This is because of the Dirty Undies. My guess is, I don't know why they don't want you to fight the wild rats. They were kind of unnecessary. You don't have Bioblaster anyway. So this is the first big, major, obvious change, aside from the reduced abilities as well as the quality of life changes, is that Welk's gimmick is, for all intents and purposes, removed. The reason is because the fight was very gimmicky, very easy, and there's not much you can really do to change the overall strategy or change the way the fight works without, like, massively buffing the bosses who would make it take way too long. It took too long in the original too. Because all you have is just 3 characters who all have the same abilities, and you can't do anything to alter your strategy really. Just those 3 hits is all it takes to win. Honestly, my favorite thing about this mod is that it leaves the spirit of the original intact. Like, there's contentious things like the translation, although there is a version that allows you to use a vanilla dialogue version, so if you're not a fan of the translation, you can use that. And there's the mechanics, but the mechanics, it's a necessary evil to restrict Espers and do what it does. It honestly makes the mechanics a lot better. Even some of the most die-hard Final Fantasy VI fans that I know, like Pro Jared, for example, actively dislike the battle system or think it's very mid. The battle system, conceptually, it's very interesting, but in terms of actual, like, robustness and consistency and balance, it's actually one of, if not the worst in the series, at least up to this point. So the things that people really like about this game, which would be like the story, the graphics, all that is left intact and doesn't add any, like, unnecessary additions. It really is the superior and definitive way to play the mod. I haven't played T Edition or Rise of the Dark Sorcerer, to be honest. I've only seen videos. I've really only played the original Ted Woolsey Uncensored version in this. It would be cool if you could play this version with the Ted Woolsey Uncensored hat, just to make the game a little bit closer to vanilla. the default is not caps. Sorry, I'll keep accidentally skipping through the dialogue. And replaying this is my favorite Final Fantasy. I always doubt myself what my favorite Final Fantasy is. I think about like all the different pros and cons they all have, how they're all good at something, how I have memories with all of them, how they all have mods that sway things in my favor somewhat, or, oh no, I really like Final Fantasy VII the best because of nostalgia, which is a viable factor in my opinion. It's Elixir. And plus the compilation, blah 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 blah. But there's just, and this game isn't perfect, not even with this mod, but there is just a certain feeling that I get when I play this game, especially the beginning of the game, where it touches me and I get sucked into the world in a way that no other game in the franchise does, or even comes close to, other than 7. And that's, this is the best game of all time. Another good change is that we have item indicators to show items, just like weapons have, like a sword has a sword, a shield has a shield item. Items previously did not have them. So consumables have the bag icon. So we have our first encounters. See, there's the delay. This section is actually, it's not hard by any means, but you can get killed here if you are playing carelessly. It's the first sign that this mod is different, combat-wise. That you can't, this isn't vanilla. It's kind of awkward getting used to it, but I'm going to try. Now I'm just going to go back to normal. It's not for me. So you'll notice, I should have talked about it earlier, save points now are different. The regular blue save points still exist. However, there are also red restore points, which when you walk into them, you get your entire party's HP and MP restored to full. They also, for the life of me, I can't remember if it revives or removes statuses. That's sad that I don't remember. I should remember, but I don't. Chests no longer, these two chests no longer do that Chrono Trigger BS where if you open them up later that you get a better item. Some people are going to think that that's negative or unfortunate because they want those better items, but they're really, it's negligible. This is, in my opinion, a dumb design decision. Not only because it's not demonstrated to the player or told to the player, but because there's no precedent for it and it's not even consistent. It's only for these two chests that I remember. So it's just better off not being there. So you don't have to avoid the temptation to open the chest, you can just open the friggin' chest. You'll also may have noticed, I don't know if I got any evades, that you can evade things now because the evade actually works. It works properly. So being able to be an evade dodge tank is actually a viable strategy. It's honestly one of the best ways to play the game. Even Terra, with her heavy armor and not being that fast, has good evade. Another thing is that stats that are inherent to the characters matter more now because of the way the game functions. So speed matters more now. It has a more significant and obvious effect on your ATB. So like Terra's speed level, for example, is only about average, maybe a little lower, versus Locke, who's a noticeably faster character. Magic was tuned down, so it's not overwhelming. Stamina has been repurposed. A lot of the stuff, I'll go over it when I go to the beginner school. I don't know if you noticed, I think it's shown here, but later on, when you get poisoned, your characters, when you walk, it shows the effect, which is, I think, good game design because it is a visual indicator you are poisoned, and also it's so aggravating you have to deal with it. They reduce the amount by, I think, roughly half, so it's not as ridiculous. So you can still tell you're poisoned without it being like a friggin' seizure fest. Oh, another thing you'll notice is that spells actually show an indication of what classification they are, either black, white, gray, or blue magic, based on the symbol that appears next to it. This means that you'll be able to tell which spells can be runic or reflected. So for example, Celeste's runic can only runic the spells that have white, black, or gray dots with it. And those spells are mostly the spells that can be reflected. So you actually have an intuitive sense of when to use runic, when to use reflect without it backfiring on you. You also can tell what spells are able for Strago to learn when they show up, so that you know that this is a lore you're supposed to learn. His lores have also been reduced down to 12 from, I forget what they were before. He's a character I never really used a lot, that I now is one of my favorite characters to use in this mod. Likewise, Gal's rages have been reduced from like 260 something down to 64. I'll go more into detail when I get to him. I wish they kept the I'm Not a Thief, I'm a Treasure Hunter, just because of a Skylit Drive, a band that uses that song name in one of their songs, as a title for one of their songs as a reference. This video is going to be long, like upwards of an hour and 15 minutes. I haven't decided. I wanted to make videos relatively shorter. So that people can fast forward throughout a playlist and get to the video that they want, that indicates like what section they want to see. But we'll see. I definitely want to get the tutorial at Beginner's House and stuff out of the way. I'm going to probably call this video when I finish that section and leave Narshe. Another thing they changed is you see that it says press Y to switch between them. It actually shows the button. Anytime it shows a button you can press on in a text box, it'll actually show it as if it were a button. So there's a lot of like fourth wall breaking humor that will appeal to people who've played the game. So as you can see here, Locke has the innate ability. Well, okay, knives allow a second weapon and can be used with throw. Certain weapon types and individual weapons have innate dual wield or two-handed. So there is no Genji glove or gauntlet. Locke cannot innately dual wield. Knives can innately dual wield depending on the weapon. And Locke happens to be one of only three people to be able to equip knives. What I could have done was unequip Terra and give him a shield, which you can do, but I didn't bother to do that. We're going to do the trick where we avoid all of them. I'm going to fight one, just so you can see the combat before I completely... If I wanted to, I could get a chance to see how dance works with the choreography patch, which we'll talk about later, but I'm just not worried about it. So this fight is mostly the same. Steal. You can now steal, and steals are now relegated to human players. Basically, only human beings, humanoids, have steal potential. This is a superior change in my opinion because it means that you now have a sort of directive or guideline for stealing. So you don't have to worry about the stealing from a random enemy and then having it say nothing to steal. Every single human enemy in the game you can steal from, and they always have something. Also, if you steal successfully, you get your turn back, and thus stealing is a free action. This is called quick steal. This means it's actually, not only do you know every enemy you can steal from without having to look it up or memorize it, not only will you always be able to steal something, they'll have something to steal, but if you succeed in stealing, which I don't know, I forget what the odds are, which those odds can also be increased through other factors. But the odds that you steal successfully are better than not. You get a free turn, so it's absolutely worth it to waste a turn using steal because your turn won't be wasted if you succeed, which between knowing which enemies you can steal from and having a decent steal rate, your odds of stealing success are very high. Fairly high, I should say. And if you use Mug, or if you use the Switchblade item, which steals when you attack, it counts as a quick steal, so you can potentially get 2 attacks. Or I guess 4 if you're dual wielding. When you dual wield, the power of each weapon is reduced by 25%. So if each knife does 100 damage and you equip 2, they now each deal 75, which results in a 150 damage. So you get a 50% bonus effectively. When you two-hand a weapon, I believe it's also the same, or it's double. I don't remember exactly. Rename card lets you change name, but we don't need that. I'm not going to sell that. This is a classroom for the beginner. Unless you've played this mod before, that means you. Please speak with everyone here and heed their advice. We're absolutely going to do that. This will be the last thing we do before we close the video. So here we have the healing bucket. Stat gains are no longer tied to character level, so there is no advantage to keep them low early in the game. You don't need to min-max to beat this mod, and there really is no wrong way to build your characters. So just have fun, eh? This is absolutely true. Normally in the original game, when you level up, whatever Esper you have equipped determines the stat you gain, which means that not only can you gain stats without even intending to do so at a random time, but you may gain stats that you don't even want because you're equipping an Esper for completely different reasons, and therefore you gain a stat bonus for that Esper when you didn't even want that stat. Like you may have Rama equipped because you're trying to learn a spell. Now you get a level up, and now you have plus, whatever to whatever when you wanted your plus something else from Shiva. Also, spells are no longer learned through battles. Rather, you get spell points, which you can then use to purchase spells individually at any time. And you don't need to min-max. There are some builds that are better for other characters. It's generally recommended you dip into a build and stick with it. You can use any build you like. It's not recommended to hybridize your characters, but I disagree. I think hybridization, so for example, distributing your stats between builds evenly is perfectly acceptable. In fact, I could argue that it's a good way to play the game because you can hybridize your character rather than building Sabin towards stamina and then being fucked on vigor. You can just build him towards everything, and then if you want him to have more vigor, you can just equip him with equipment or relics that boost vigor. So, and since you can't undo your build until the World of Ruin, which costs a fee, it's arguably advisable to make your characters a hybrid because equipment can be switched around at will without you having to pay any kind of penalty for it. The purpose of doing this should be obvious. There's always a chance you'll learn something new that's different. This is important. That is a new addition right here to this version of the mod. This is important because enemy AI is very different and reactive in this game. So you can't access the advanced school until you get to the auction house, which is now replaced. What this means also is that you don't retain EXP through game overs. That's a very strange thing that only this game in the franchise does. In the original game, as far as I remember at least, when you die and you continue, you keep your experience. I don't know if you keep your learned spells or whatever, but basically you're always getting stronger. It's kind of like Dragon Quest, but with no penalties. Another reason why the game is so easy. So they don't have any room in the data to make this a genuine save point, which is unfortunate. It's not a big deal. This mod does have to make some concessions, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. It'd be cool if in a finalized version they can get this working again. But seeing as you can save right outside, it's really not necessary. A lot of this stuff is going to be reiterating stuff I said before. But it's hard not to talk about certain things. I wanted to front load as much new information about the mod in the early stages of this video because I wanted to hook in viewers who are new to the mod and want to know what it is about without having to wait 45 minutes to get information. As you can see, the D-pads are also altered. So one thing a lot of people like to do, I have a friend who played this game partially once, is that you can actually stock up on 99 dried meats, which are very cheap. I think it's valuable. It's very useful for maintaining like your dungeon run or whatever when you don't have access to healing. I usually don't do it because I don't need to. I buy just what I need basically. So as you can see, Locke is noticeably faster than Terra. I believe he was faster than Terra in the original game, but I don't think it was this pronounced. You see how much faster he is? It's ridiculous. I believe the delay is also relative to that character's speed, so his attacks are also faster as well. I believe this function was in the original game, but it required a full turn no matter what. I'm not positive because it's something I don't think I've ever actually done. So, one thing that's very important is that the stamina stat got a massive overhaul. In the original game, magic was basically the only useful stat. Vigor was sort of useful, but it paled since it was primarily for damage. I think it also affected damage taken, but since it was primarily for damage, and magic damage was just so much more useful, it was not that great, especially late game. Speed and stamina were basically useless. In this game, all 4 of the primary stats are useful, and I would argue that they're all about equal in usefulness. Gauntlet? Dingy Glove? What in blazes are those? You on the dope, son? The stamina attribute helps you evade status elements set by enemy attacks and avoid certain attacks altogether. A fail message is displayed whenever stamina prevents a negative status. If the target is immune, it will say null. Stamina also reduces the HP recovery from regen and lowers the drain from sap. Several abilities such as the Remedy and Regen spells or the Aura Bolt Blitz now use stamina to determine their strength. And it also affects the frequency of counterattacks and or guarding allies for characters who can do so. Finally, stamina helps you take lower and more consistent damage from magical attacks. The Vigor attribute does the same thing for physical damage taken, in addition to governing physical damage dealt. So, making your character very stamina and or HP heavy, and using that as a means to benefit them to get more often and more useful counterattacks or cover attacks is absolutely a viable strategy. A classic example of this would be taking the character Cyan, who already has naturally high HP and stamina, and buffing those traits so that he can be, and then giving him Knight's Cape, so that he can cover for your allies very consistently and get counterattacks. accident, my bad. There's so much information. There's almost too much to talk about. It's crazy. So we're going to go ahead and go out and save. I'm going to show the difference here in stats. As you can see, Locke has more vigor, but Terra has more magic. Locke has more speed and stamina and attack, but Terra has more defense due to her ability to equip heavier armor. Locke has more evade, but Terra has more magic defense. They both have the same for magic evade. So Terra cannot equip knives. I can give Locke Mithril Bolo or Buckler. So if I want, I can either have Locke in the front row with 2 daggers, Locke in the front row with a dagger and a shield, so the shield gives him more defense, Locke in the back row with 2 daggers, so that way he can be able to get decent damage from his 2 daggers while still being relatively safe, or giving him a dagger and shield and putting him in the back row, which will cut his attack power dramatically, but will keep him so safe it is ridiculous. Add that to the fact that he can also boost HP and stamina. You actually have genuine equipment and setup and row options and decisions that you can make that you didn't have in the original game by comparison. I'll talk a lot more about that in the next video. So as you can see here, there is actually a new tile for Narshe. You can actually see the buildings, rather than it just being a generic hole in the cave. This is the only one like it in the game, and I think that's really, really cool. Really cool. So we're going to go ahead and save here. And that'll be it for the video. I will do another video coming out here soon. And we'll get from the beginning all the way through Faerghus, I think is where we'll end off. We'll see. But that'll be all for now.